definitely people out there that are campaigning as progressives, but they're not walking their talk. And what's exciting about Pat is he has not taken any corporate money or any PAC money.
Yeah,
that's right.
All right.
That's right. One thing I love about Pat is that he's a progressive who's aggressive and wins.
Yes.
I think it's really smart that we can have somebody who sued the insurance companies and won, who sued Bank of America and won, who went after a pedophile priest and won. The fact you can sue and win inspires me, because I'm tired of hearing these platitudes and these really nice poetic speeches. I want to hear that we have a progressive in California who's going to do something and who's going to win. You know, if this was Oklahoma, if this was Tennessee, we know how far to the right they'd be going. California, we deserve Medicare for all. We deserve health care.
SB 562!
That's right.
In fact, our hostess, Edie, is wearing an SB 562 t-shirt. So,
All right.
Edie, thank you so much for hosting us and putting this together. And the floor is yours if there's anything you want to say.
I just want to thank everybody for coming. This is something that Bernie started in 2015, and that's how I got people here, is the friends and people who feel like family that I made on the Bernie campaign, and I feel like Pat Harris is going to help carry that on.
Awesome.
So with that, I think we'll go ahead and turn it over to Pat Harris.
Well, thank you. And I got to tell you guys, this is incredible. Edie and Tom, this is, what a fabulous place, what a fabulous layout. You guys, amazing, absolutely amazing. I'd heard Edie's stories before this, okay? They were all about what an incredibly gracious host she was and the phenomenal phone banking that went on in this house for Bernie. I think Bernie probably got about 90% of his votes out of his house, from what I hear, because the work was incredible. But I do want to thank you. I want to thank Erica and John, for helping sponsor this. This is amazing. I do appreciate the fact that it is St. Patrick's Day. It's early morning. I know you guys turning out. It's just tremendous. And I think what we're going to do, if it's okay with you, we have Jonathan, who many of you know, and who is going to sort of moderate. Is that the good word? We'll call it moderate, just a discussion. We're going to talk about some issues, and then we'll take some questions, and just sort of be very relaxed. And I will try not to yell and scream too much, unless we hit on certain issues, and then I probably will yell. But other than that, we'll just have kind of a nice, relaxed discussion. And anybody who wants to ask any questions, wants to know anything about where this campaign's headed and what we are, I'd love to talk about it. You also have my incredible staff here, which I'll talk about a little later, to answer questions. And we got the bus outside. My wonderful wife is here, who is my greatest supporter and the person who actually keeps me going on a daily basis. And by the way, she is also one of the great jazz singer and pianists in the entire world.
Yes.
But we'll take questions, and we'll start by just kind of moderating, and then Jonathan, if you would.
We have this great packed room. If everybody could kind of move over this way, so that we can both our eyes can be focused here. So we are live streaming all across the globe, actually, in at least 80 to 85 countries. We want to welcome our viewers on Facebook from around the world, in Africa, in Europe, in Asia. If you're watching this, you can tweet us at the hashtag is Pat4Senate, the number 4. Am I right?
No, it's just spelled out 4. F-O-R.
Okay.
We weren't clever enough to do the 4. We should have.
Pat F-O-U-R Senate.com. Am I right?
F-O-R.
F-O-R. Not the 4, not the 4. I'm getting confused. Okay, we'll try it again. Pat F-O-R Senate.com. If you want to tweet us with that hashtag, we will get to questions and answer all the questions that people have about the campaign. I do want to thank Edie and Tom for opening up their house, and it's really wonderful. And I was ogling your baseball collection over there. You can't see this on Facebook around the world as you're watching, but there's about, I'm gonna guess, you have to love baseball the way I do. There's about 70 or 75, roughly, autographed baseballs.
160.
160. Which is why people never let me do the counting in anything. My math is really bad.
We'll be not when you leave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you better frisk me when I leave. But let's go.
I got to tell you one quick story though before you do that, because it has to do with baseball. Because I go on Jonathan's podcast, which is an amazing podcast seen all over the world, as you said. It's got a huge viewership. I go on Jonathan's podcast. We're about to go on. He said, "I'm going to have to be honest with you." He said, "This is not going to be an easy interview." He said, "I'm going to ask you right off. I'm going to ask you the single toughest question." And I'm thinking, "Uh-oh, here we go." We get on the air and he says, "Okay, there's 4 baseball teams in California. Who is it you root for?" I said, that is the toughest question. I said, "Man, I am screwed. I can't say San Diego because then I lose Northern California. I can't say the Giants. I lose the Dodgers." So I said, "I don't vote. I support all of them, but actually I'm a Texas Rangers fan because I actually worked for the Texas Rangers for a while. So I get to use that as an excuse."
And he was honest about that, which is a good thing. He wasn't a typical politician, which is a great transition into our conversation. So in our introduction that people heard in this packed room, and this is again for our Facebook crowd because you're going to love this topic, I think, Erica mentioned that an important part of what people are motivated to get active here in California is single-payer health care,
Yes.
Medicare for all. And that's something that I think motivated many people to support Bernie Sanders, certainly in the presidential campaign. But the activists here in California have done an amazing job. So what is your perspective about Medicare for all, and what brought you to be a supporter of single-payer?
Well, I think basically life experience. I think most of us have had certain life experiences that have showed us that our friends, our family, people around us have all experienced problems with the healthcare system. I think when you start just reading and you see the stories of human life and the just basic lack of healthcare in this country, the country that has the most wealth and the ability and the basic lack of healthcare, it's scary. I met with a doctor early on before I even started this campaign. She was telling me a story about a woman who came in. They had a clinic in Torrance. A woman comes in, she's bleeding profusely, and they get her in the emergency room. They start trying to take care of her, and they ask her, said, when was the last time you've been any kind of a doctor? She said, about 10 years. I said, why have you taken 10 years to go to a doctor? She said, because it cost me $25 to get somebody to watch my kids. It cost me another $15 to get a car, taxi ride over here. And it cost me about $30 to get whatever the medical test done. So it cost me about $65. I can't afford that. The woman died on the table. She died. And the doctor told me, she said, if she had gone to a doctor even a year or two before, she had cervix cancer, they would have been able to diagnose it and stop it and cure her. Those are the kind of things that are occurring every single day throughout this country. And it's not 1 or 2 people, it's hundreds, thousands of people. How we can call ourselves a civilized country, how we can actually take money and spend it on things like one more missile system, incredibly huge, another $80 billion for the Defense Department just the other day, when we have the real issues are here at home with our people and these stories. And I think that I don't think anyone who knows about our healthcare system, who's seen people, I don't see you cannot support Medicare for all.
And now, once you're sworn into the U.S. Senate, one of the things that has actually happened that is a good sign, it's really a testament to the incredible activism all across the country, is that when Bernie Sanders first introduced Medicare for all, when he was a senator 2-3 years ago, he got 0 co-sponsors. You may know that just a few months ago he introduced it. He now has 13 co-sponsors. I would say half of them are probably looking to run for president. Yeah. So they've determined, because of all the activism of you all, people here and people watching all across the country on Facebook, that they cannot become the nominee, frankly, without supporting Medicare for all. That is a fundamental core issue. You're not going to get through the Iowa caucuses or the early primaries without being a strong supporter. So when you're in the Senate, what's your view about how to galvanize the party around Medicare for all as a winning issue out there?
That's a great question. First of all, I would say that is the first thing I promised I will do as senator is walk across the aisle and sign on to Bernie Sanders' Medicare for all bill. That's going to be the very first thing I do. Now,
Huzza. We like feedback from the audience reaction.
We were trying to be to be polite.
No. This is politics. There is no politeness in politics. Like no crying in baseball, there's no politeness in politics.
I think the one thing that is often overlooked and that a senator has got to do is we can get some support for Medicare for All. And as you said, the Democratic Party is not going to nominate a person, I don't believe, in 2020 who is not supportive of Medicare for All. But here's what we have to remember. The minute it becomes a major plank or major part of this election, you're going to see insurance companies raise hell like nothing we've ever seen before. If you think the Obamacare thing or any other thing that's been introduced that the Republicans or conservatives have come after, it's going to be hell hath no fury like what's going to happen. What we have to be able to think about is we have to have senators that are going to be willing to not just support this, but to go out every single day and fight for this. And I mean fight for it. We're going to have to have people on television every single day, on radio, podcasts. They're going to have to be selling this to the American public and talking about the lies and the number of things that are going to be brought out, because you're going to hear it. You're going to hear, I did a debate on Medicare for All down at USC with a guy who's running for Senate in Missouri. First thing he brought up is, oh, well, this is a government takeover. You're going to be hearing all that kind of stuff. And you're going to be hearing, it's like the British system, you know.
Right.
We're going to have paying doctors will be paid by the government and the hospitals. You're going to hear these lies repeatedly.
You heard them from Dianne Feinstein
No,
at both,
you heard
at both of her
All right,
town
hold-
halls.
That's true. You're going to be hearing these things, but you're going to have somebody who's willing to go out and talk about it and constantly, not just like I said, it's not just to support it. It's going to be, you're going to have somebody who fights for it. We got to fight these lies. We got to make sure the public understands this is not what it is, and we got to make the public understand what it is, because if we market this correctly, if we push it correctly, and we fight for it, the public's going to support it. We will win with it. It's a winning issue, but we're going to get flooded with dollars and money, so we got to be willing to fight for it.
Now, in fact, on this question of fighting for something that makes sense and fighting for a true progressive agenda, there's a lot of chatter out there among Democrats coming into the 2018 midterm elections, your election this year, that the way to win is to be centrist, to, I love the way that you're shaking your head. And what I often thought, and we talked about this when you were on my podcast, is what is the definition of left and right? And you may remember we talked about Paul Wellstone.
Yeah.
When he ran, when Paul Wellstone, which he was Bernie Sanders before Bernie Sanders was running. And one of the things that Paul was great about, he ran in Minnesota, and he ran on a very clearly progressive agenda in a state that he was elected to by a very small margin, in the low 50s. But he would go to areas, quote-unquote rural red areas, and he would talk about the same issues you're just talking about and still win people's votes because they trusted him.
That's right.
And it made sense to them.
Yep.
That's
exactly what we're doing. And in fact, we copied Paul Wellstone. We had the bus. Paul
That's
Wellstone,
true.
Yeah, Paul Wellstone was famous because he took a green bus all around the state of Minnesota. And he went to places exactly like we're doing. He's going to places and talking to people, about progressive ideas, because in general, for the most part, if you explain to somebody, look, I'm not here to discuss abortion, I'm not here to discuss these issues, these wedge issues. I'm here to talk about how we can make people's lives better, how we can deal with income inequality, how we can get a healthcare system that actually works for you. Those are issues people want to talk about because they're the issues that actually affect them on a daily basis. I tell people, you drive down the 405, okay? You look to your left, you look to your right in the car. The person in the left and the right, they're not going down the freeway going, gosh, I wonder about criminal justice reform today. Or I wonder about what we're going to do about the latest abortion rules in Mississippi. They're sitting there going, am I going to have to take a third job? How am I going to pay back my student loan debt? They're worried about whether or not they can actually pay their mortgage or their rent. We have to address those issues with people. We have to be out talking to them about it. And I will tell you, I go out in the red counties. I've been all up North Country. And for those of you who don't know, there's an article on the front page of the LA Times today about the Lincoln movement. Did you see that? The state of Lincoln, which is a group up there that wanted to basically secede from California because we're too liberal.
Not a bad idea.
Well, they want to have all the urban areas be California. They want to be New California.
They want to be. Well, that's another movement.
There's another one.
There's
Okay.
another one.
Yeah.
There's a couple. But it's interesting when you listen to them because when I go up and talk to them, for the most part, they will sit there and they'll tell you they don't agree with you. But they are so happy somebody will actually listen to them and listen to their concerns. I walked into a bar. I shouldn't say why I was in the bar, but I walked into a bar. And I was talking to these four guys who one of them had a Lincoln shirt on. And I said, look, we disagree on all this. We talked for a while. I got up and walked out and the guy says, I don't like much of what you stand for, but I'm going to vote for it. Because you'll at least come talk to us. You'll at least listen to us. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we have is they don't feel like anybody's listening to them.
Let's take your 405 trip and divide that into two pieces, which you mentioned, because I think they're important issues that you're running on. One is people thinking about, do I need to take a third job? And this brings me to your support for $15 an hour minimum wage. Talk about what you see out there when you've been talking to people about the issue of income inequality and what people are feeling about not being able to make ends meet.
The biggest thing you hear over and over and over from people out there is, I've got a job, but it's not paying the bills. One of the things that has been fascinating to me about, I think, Republicans and even some conservative independents is they are looking at the issue of jobs and saying, I see the papers every day saying unemployment is going down, 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 but my income's not going up. It's doing nothing for me. It's not helping me at all. Because it's not just, and this is, I think, one of the great lines Bernie Sanders had throughout the campaign, it's not about having jobs. It's about having good jobs. Jobs that actually can allow you to pay for what your, for your basic bills. When you're working, we've seen what, unfortunately, Amazon is doing.
Yes.
And we've seen Amazon pay workers so little that they are going and having to get on Medicaid. They're having to get on different government programs. So, in essence, when you think about it, we as taxpayers are subsidizing Amazon workers.
Yes, that's right.
Which is absolutely ridiculous. You can't pay them enough. I mean, you've got an owner who's, on his, I don't know where he is now, 200 billion or 300 billion or whatever he's got. And we can't pay the workers $15 or $17 or $20 an hour. That's ridiculous. That's not the country. Louis Brandeis said it best. He said, you can either have a democracy or you can have a country where the wealth is concentrated in a few, but you can't have both.
And
That's
Pat made an excellent point about Amazon. Once upon a time, we used to call it the Walmart economy.
That's right.
Because in fact,
Yeah.
many children of parents who work for Walmart have to be on Medicaid and have to be on essentially state-supported programs because their parents don't earn enough money to get them health care or even get them food. And I believe that in Georgia, at one point, the largest number of Medicaid recipients were people who basically worked for Walmart because of how little Walmart paid. By the way, while I'm talking, and especially to the Facebook people listening on other streams that are happy, you can go to Pat's website, patforsenate.com.
Pat Harris
Pat-
for Senate.
PatHarrisForSenate.com.
And spell out F-O-R.
Okay.
Pat
Pat Harris.
For
I'm terrible at this.
Senate.com.
PatHarrisForSenate.com.
You got it.
Pat Harris, F-O-R, Senate.com, and look at issues. And then there's a little thing on his website, which is a donate button, by the way. And you might want to click on the donate button, and we'll come to that in a second, but it's very important to support progressive candidates. So go to Pat's website, look up the issues, and support the campaign. And so let's move to something that you're very passionate about. This was the other part about the 405 freeway drive, was criminal justice.
Yes.
And that's something both in your background in law, you feel very, I remember you talking passionately about that. What do you see happening in the state, and then how do you take that nationally to address the incarceration of people, especially people of color, the injustices that you see, and what would you do?
Well, I think the criminal justice system, as somebody who's been a criminal justice, criminal defense attorney, and civil rights attorney for the last 25 years, it's broken. The system has been broken for a while, and we're going to have to fix it. And I tell you, right now it is broken almost right down the lines of income. You see people who have the ability to get arrested, and who have the ability to bail out, for example, who have the ability to fight the government, they're going to get the best deals. They're going to get things worked out. I just got to tell you, I get really, you talk about getting fired up. I got fired up last week. Extremely upset. Last week in Los Angeles, okay, we had a district attorney, Jackie Lacey, who refused to file charges against a police officer who shot down a young black man in Venice. He was unarmed and absolutely was not fighting. What made this case unique, this is a very unique case, okay? Almost every case, the police officers can sort of say, well, this was happening or this was happening. There was video that showed that the guy was unarmed. There was actually his partner, which never happens, disputed his version of the events. The police commission said how he acted was totally outside of protocol. And here's the amazing thing, Jonathan. The chief of police, and this has never in my lifetime been done, the chief of police in the LAPD said he should be prosecuted. That's never happened. The prosecutor refused to do it.
She's got to go.
She's got to go. And I just wrote an editorial, which hopefully the LA Times is going to publish, asking for her resignation. Because that, to me, is the essence of what we're dealing with in this criminal justice system. A young black man who is essentially homeless, he has no justice. You take almost an exact opposite of that, you go into what happened with Wall Street. Wall Street, when we all went through the 2008 crash, you could have gone in and, by taking the laws, you could have indicted 3/4 of Goldman Sachs, practically. You could have gone in and wiped out a number of these people because of their criminal involvement in what they did. What happened? The U.S. attorney, again the prosecutor in New York, basically said, it's going to take too much trouble, it's too many resources, it's going to take up too much money. They're going to go hire very expensive defense attorneys. And these defense attorneys are going to tie us up for years. So, we just can't do that. We just can't prosecute them. So they walk away. They absolutely walk away.
Is that Cyrus Vance, Jr.?
And let me say, I can say this because on behalf of Pat, the reason Pat's running as a progressive Democrat is, remember, this all happened under an Obama administration, a Democratic administration. The failure to prosecute people, that comes from the top. And that's why I think many of us are engaged in trying to make the Democratic Party more progressive, because it really is about defending the people.
It is.
So let's turn to questions from the audience, both here in this packed room at the event, and also if you want to post them on our Facebook or any other streams and pass them on. I'll act as the moderator, just as a traffic cop mostly. If they can be short questions, say who you are, and not speeches, but questions so Pat can respond to them. Anybody want to jump in and take a first question? I can see all the eager hands. Yes?
What's the percentage of cases that you've taken that were people that were underserved, that were people that didn't have hope? What's the percentage? Because I keep hearing about different cases that you've taken.
Well, I started off, when I got out of law school, I went to the University of Michigan, and I had opportunities to go work for corporate law firms. And starting out at a six-figure income, and eventually, you become a partner, and you get the nice house and the yacht and all that good stuff. I chose instead to go work for the Public Defender's Office in Nashville, Tennessee, for what amounted to $2,000 a month. And I did that because my family and what I believed in and how I grew up is in public service and being a voice for those who don't have a voice. In the Public Defender's Office, every single person there was somebody who could not afford. They could not only not afford an attorney, most of them couldn't afford bail. Most of them couldn't afford it. Bail was $500 they couldn't afford. I had a guy who stole some bologna from a 7-Eleven, ended up having to sit in jail for 6 months, lost his job, his apartment, everything, because he couldn't make $500 bail. That's why he took the bologna, frankly. A huge percentage of my clientele has always been people who didn't have money. When I did come out to Los Angeles, I got brought out to Los Angeles on a case, actually. I had to leave the Public Defender's Office. I came out here. I went to work for a law firm. It was a law firm. One of the things I was attracted to about it, it was a law firm that had a lot of high-profile, interesting cases, some of people with money. But one of the things that we did was we ran one of the strongest pro bono practices in all the state of California. We took on, one of the great cases we took on was the Armenian genocide and New York Life's failure to basically pay the survivors of the genocide. And that was a huge. We spent like 5 years on that, ended up getting New York Life to pay off between two banks, almost $40-something million. So we practiced not only that, but what we preached. But then I went out on my own after that, and I determined on my own that I wanted to spend my practice on cases that I wanted to deal with, not cases that brought the most money in or were dealing with the highest paying clients, but were things that I found I wanted to fight for. You mentioned earlier I fought for a gentleman who was actually fighting the Catholic Church and taking on the church over the abuse of children. We went to trial up in San Jose, and we exposed the fact that the Catholic Church was running a retirement home in the middle of Los Gatos, which was nothing more than putting a bunch of priests that they knew were a problem, sticking them in one area. And amazingly enough, within a 1 mile radius of 15 high schools, junior highs, and allowing them total freedom to come and go as they want. We put a stop to that, and we also won the case. So I'd say the vast majority of my cases over my career, if you count the public defender's office and up, have been for those with no money or no resources. That's what I believe in.
That's awesome. Any additional questions? Yes, so what? Yes, go ahead.
I was just interested in your one-term pledge, and if you wanted to talk a little bit more about that.
I talk about the fact that, well, we haven't gotten into this, but essentially, we all know that the scourge of the political system is corporate donations, corporate money. It is what has changed the system dramatically, and it is the one thing that's got to be taken care of before we're able to do much of anything else. We have to deal with the fact that you can't say it any other way than corporations are paying for congressmen's votes. That's just what's happening, and there is no sugarcoating it. What I've said is I worked on the Hill for a couple of years when I came out of college. I've seen what senators and congressmen do with their days, and it vaguely amounts to coming to the office, having a few meetings, meeting a couple of constituents, going to the floor, maybe going to a committee meeting. Then they go over to a building that's next door to the Capitol, and they spend anywhere from 3 to 4 to 6 hours just constantly on the phone, churning, constantly looking for contributions, calling. All they're doing is worrying about their reelection. In my opinion, not all, thank God, but the vast majority of senators and congressmen spend anywhere from 40 to 70% of their time working on reelection. What I've pledged is I'm not going to spend 1 minute working on my reelection. I won't raise one dime while I'm sitting there. I have no desire to sit there and spend my days talking to people about raising money for a reelection campaign, because it's not only is it not democracy, but it actually is not representing the people of California, which is what you're being paid to do.
Would you feel differently if we had a completely 100% campaign finance system, meaning there would be no outside money at all? That it would all be, in the old days, you can check off, on your tax form, a dollar goes.
You still can.
Which you can. See, I forgot about that. There you go. But what I'm saying is, I'll be honest with you, I've never been for term limits, because I think it gets people lazy if they think, oh, I don't have to get that jerk out now because they'll be out because of term limits. But your point about corporate money and the corruption money is absolutely right, but I wouldn't want to lose someone like you. I'm not saying you should change your pledge, because that's a pledge. I'm just saying in general, the problem is the money, not the fact that someone's in office.
Well, I do, I was against term limits my whole life. I always thought the same thing. I think Citizens United changed that.
Yeah.
Citizens United made it, it made it so that now, because of the amount of money that can come into a campaign, you really, honestly, I don't think congressmen or senators can get reelected unless they spend their time raising the money or doing it. And I think it's changed the whole dynamic, and I do support now. I actually, like I said, I'm with you. For years I thought term limits were a bad idea. Now I think because of Citizens United, I think it's something we got to look at. I think we actually need to look at limiting senators to 2 terms and limiting congressmen to 6 terms, because otherwise we are just going to continue on the same route we're going down.
Do we have any online questions, or, but go ahead, yes.
Yes, I'm concerned about the judges. I mean, as we know, they stalled the confirmation of Merrick Garland to the point where until Obama left. And then they rushed through the appointment of Gorsuch. And what the media isn't talking about, because all they focus is on Trump and Russia, is that Trump has appointed more judges, like within his first year, that are right-wing, verified by the Federalist Society. Before it used to be the American Bar Association. Now they don't listen to them. They just listen to the Federalist Society, which is extremely conservative, overturning decades of jurisprudence. And I just read yesterday that the Koch brothers, who I think are even worse than Trump, are trying to get the lower court judges, similarly conservative judges, appointed for life.
Yes.
Media is not talking about this. What could be done about it?
Well, you've hit a huge nail on the head, because first off, one of the things people ask me is, what got me interested in running? And the first thing that got me interested in running was the Merrick Garland nomination. Because the failure of the Democratic Party to not just shut down the Capitol and shut down this government over that was a constitutional crisis. There was absolutely no basis for what they did. They put it out there as this is something that the Constitution allows for. That was total baloney. There is nothing even they could come up with that remotely stated as to why they should do it. And I felt the Democratic Party, instead of sort of rolling back and saying, well, we'll get Hillary elected, it'll be okay, the Democratic Party should have shut down the government at that point. We should have never allowed the Republicans to get away with that. When I talk about Democrats who fight, exactly. That's what we got to have. To go more directly to what your question was, though, the single biggest thing that people don't recognize when they vote for somebody like Trump, or they end up with a Republican administration, conservative administration, the federal judiciary plays an enormous role in this country. And you are exactly right, Lauren. The media is not reporting right now, Donald Trump has gotten more first-year nominees through Congress than any president in history. Okay? Ever.
How is that possible?
It's exactly, how is it possible? And I'll tell you how it's possible, because they don't have any problem with fighting and going forward and doing it. They do it. We had Obama in a Democratic Senate, a Democratic Congress. Do you know in 2008, when he was elected, 2009, when he actually started his service, that was the lowest number of federal judiciary appointments, because the Republicans know how to block it.
Yeah.
They know how to stop it, and they fight for it. And we ended up getting fewer federal judiciary nominees on the court than we should have had, because we don't stand up for it. We have got to make this as an issue, because it's a huge issue. We're getting a bunch of not only conservatives, we're getting radicals as federal judges. Okay,
And very
radicals.
young.
And young radicals.
Yes.
That's exactly
We'll
right.
be around for
This
many
is a huge issue. We need to be. I have to say this. I was at some function where I was talking, and Dianne Feinstein sent one of her representatives, and he said, we've got to re-elect Dianne, because she's in there fighting to keep these judicial nominees, Trump's judicial nominees. And I stood up and said,
Where?
yeah, I mean, this is the most nominees any president's ever been able to get through. Whatever you're doing, it's not working.
And this is why, just to add quickly, that when people say, why are the Republicans not standing up to Trump and so on, he's delivering exactly what they want. The tax cuts for the rich, what you're talking about, young, packing the courts with young, very right-wing judges. And so they're happy to let him do what he wants to do and all this craziness, because he's actually delivering to them their specific agenda.
That's right.
And so when people say Trump is not the real Republican Party, that's wrong. He's exactly, if you look back on history, going back to Reagan and so on, tax cuts for the rich, it's all the same agenda. We have time for maybe one or two more questions. One more question. Is there any online question we have? Or right here, last question, and then we're going to do one quick thing, and then we'll wrap up.
Thanks. We've already mentioned campaign donations from the big corporations. So I'm wondering about a specific industry that is the one that the U.S. Congress gives the most money to, the defense industry, and we also have a we just mentioned the $80 billion, and then we're going to probably give even more than $700 billion. So that's it's a big problem for the rest of the world, right? We have an empire that is killing a lot of people. We're bombing 9 countries and everything. So I'm wondering what your plan is to really rein in that issue that we have. But it's also, there are so many people that are employed by Lockheed, by Raytheon, by Northrop Grumman, right here in LA. So how are you going to stand up against that empire that is killing so many people, that is wrecking the environment? The U.S. is the biggest polluter. So what is your plan for that?
One of the biggest fallacies is that, and I think this is one thing that Democratic senators as well as Republican senators of California and congressmen have fallen prey to is, well, we need to make sure we get defense spending because that's jobs. In actuality, the one time, it's only happened once in the last 30 or 40 years, that we've cut back on the Defense Department, which was during the 90s when we actually did a substantial cut. We did not lose jobs. Defense contractors did not lose jobs. And the reason they didn't lose jobs is because when you cut back on the Defense Department, you're not cutting back on jobs. You're cutting back on weapons. You're cutting back on the things. Let me just give you an example. The Defense Department itself did an audit of their own company, their own department, because, interestingly enough, no one else is allowed to do an audit. They have to audit themselves. Yeah. So they did an audit, and it got leaked by a whistleblower. And what it determined was $125 billion over 5 years of waste. $125 billion. 5 years, it's $25 billion a year in waste. And here's what it determined. Administrative waste. It wasn't even about weapons. It wasn't even about wars. It was $25 billion in administrative waste. We sit here and talk about how are we going to afford free college? How are we going to afford, Medicare for all? We talk about the fact that we've got diseases and things that are near being cured, but we can't put the money into medical research. We no longer put the money into scientific technology, the things that are actually going to improve people's lives on a dramatic basis. And instead, we give it to the Defense Department so they can waste it on copy paper and pens, apparently. It's ridiculous, and it has got to stop. And I tell you, step one, I'm going to sign on to Barbara Lee's measure. She's a congresswoman from Oakland, who very first thing is she puts out a measure every year that very few, unfortunately, Democrats sign, which says we should be allowed to audit the Defense Department.
Yeah.
Okay, that was awesome. Now, people here, we're going to do one last thing, which is really, really important. This is for all the Facebook people, also the people that are listening to live stream. I've been a candidate, and I have to say that in the beginning, both Erica, with her wonderful introduction and people's reaction to you talking about corporate money, everybody applauded. We don't want corporate money. But campaigns do cost money. And so we can't just say we don't want corporate money. We can say that without saying also we're willing to contribute and make sure these campaigns actually have enough money to get Pat where he goes, to put well, actually you don't need gasoline because that bus is totally biofuel and battery and solar powered. But there's just basic costs. And so I want to do two things, not just to be hypocritical about this. The first thing I'm going to do is to the online people. If any of people watching, up to 10 people, who give more than $50 right now, I feel like a telethon. Go to Pat Harris for Senate.com, and I will send you an autographed copy for free of the Essential Bernie Sanders and his Vision for America. I will sign 10 copies and give them to the campaign, and they'll identify in some way anybody who's donated $50 or more to PatHarrisForSenate.com. I'll sign this copy, and everybody here who came to the fundraiser is already going to get a copy of this, and if they want, they can get it signed. And the second thing I'm going to do is here's $100. You got to put your money where your mouth is. And I'm asking everybody here. I know people may have donated already, but if you came just to listen to Pat, then you should have been convinced, as I know I didn't arrange this ahead of time, Pat, by the way. He didn't know I was going to do this. So this isn't like one of those, makeup things. But everybody should do whatever you can, and then stretch a little bit further. Because we want Pat to be in the Senate and be inaugurated and sworn in 2019, we have to put our money where our mouths are. We really have to fundraise for people like Pat, true progressives who we want in the Senate.
Yes.
Otherwise, we go home and we say, where are those voices for us? Well, those voices can't be heard if we don't contribute. So again, anybody online, the commitment I'll make, and anybody here, let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's contribute today. I know it's always easy to take an envelope, which I've done before, and honestly, I'll be honest, I'll be right. I go home, I've been to a dozen fundraisers, I put the envelope aside, and sometimes I forget to send it. And so if people can actually put something in the envelope today, and there are envelopes here, the campaign, don't hand the money to Pat. You know, the campaign, the candidate never touches the money. You give the money to the campaign
to circulate with those, so for checks.
And we want to thank everybody. I'm sure there's
Pens.
There's pens.
Do they make checks out to Pat Harris for Senate?
Pay the order of Pat Harris for Senate.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's what. Okay.
Pat Harris for U.S. Senate
For US.
2018.
2018.
That's fine too. That works.
How about this? If anybody gives 150, I'll make a banana pudding for them.
That's no joke. She has
Now
no
that's
idea.
the bar has really been set higher. The book is easy.
You have to
Banana
be here,
pudding.
not on Facebook. Here.
Erica, do you want to close?
You know what? So as an activist and seeing all you incredible people here, I have to take a minute to do my activism.
Don't please.
For if any of you, I'm sure everyone here is familiar with Medicare for All, single payer health care. We have a bill, and it's called Senate Bill 562, SB 562. And it is, so we love Pat Harris, you know, helping us out when he gets elected on the national level. But there is a bill on the state level that we can pass, and we can lead the nation with single-payer health care. It has already passed the state Senate, and it is being held up in the Assembly by Speaker Anthony Rendon. In fact, I'm just going to pause a moment because Maria Estrada has walked in the room, and this is, you want to talk about a progressive who's aggressive. Maria Estrada is challenging. She's going to be running against Anthony Rendon, and we so appreciate her. Because of this issue, Senate Bill 562, he has taken it out of the democratic process and shelved it. And so whether you support single payer or whether you just want to be a defender of small d democracy, I'm going to ask that you please call Speaker Rendon's office and ask him to allow Senate Bill 562 to go to committee for a vote. That's all we're asking for. Go to committee. In committee, any problems he has with it or the assembly members have with it, that's where it can be amended. They're playing a political game with you by saying, oh, it's woefully incomplete. Oh, it has this problem, it has that problem. So that's why that they're saying they don't support it. Those problems can be fixed when it's in committee. But it can't be fixed until it goes to committee. So please call Speaker Rendon at area code 916-319-2063 and tell him to free Senate Bill 562 for a vote. One last pitch. Gavin Newsom is one of the candidates that's running for governor. I read an article that he is saying he is for single-payer health care. And he is open to anybody's ideas they might have for single payer. I would like for you to call Gavin Newsom and tell him, we don't need ideas because we have a bill. And the bill is Senate Bill 562.
That's right.
So please call Gavin Newsom and let him know we've got a bill. And Gavin Newsom's number is 916-445-8994. And you can see me afterwards, and I can give out those numbers again.
So I'm here because I'm supportive, obviously, of Pat Harris. But the reason I came to this specific event is because of this amazing person, Erica. As you can tell, boy, Pacific Palisades has an incredible new leader. And Erica, I met through the Bernie campaign, but it's really, you know, one of the great pleasures of being in the Bernie Sanders campaign was meeting incredible activist like that, and that was amazing. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. And we can get this passed.
Absolutely.
Lead the people. Make those calls. It really does make a difference.
I know the questions are over, but can I ask you a question about SB 562? Because that was the thing that was so. No more questions. Watch me keep going.
No,
Okay, well, I'll take the jacket off. I'm asking the question.
Now it's a free for anybody who wants to check
Okay,
out his time.
because that's the thing about SB 562. Gavin Newsom did tell us in Sacramento, "I'm for SB 562." He actually told us that on stage. But then where is it? Then where's the support for it? When Anthony Rendon was holding it up. The thing I have a question about is this: Anthony Rendon told the nurses, "Don't put the funding mechanism in, just give it to me, we'll deal with that later." Then he said there was no funding mechanism, and then they started saying pie in the sky. I'm getting sick and tired of hearing pie in the sky. If you're going to be the one politician in California, if you're going to be the one who gets elected that's not taking the corporate money, what are you going to be able to do to hold our elected officials' feet to the fire, hold them accountable to the people, not the corporations, in getting SB 562 passed?
You know, one of the things about SB 562 that I found fascinating about the funding mechanism, they sat there and say over and over and over, we can't get it out of committee, we can't do it, we don't have a funding mechanism. Interestingly enough, the the tunnel project, the Delta Tunnel project, same thing. When the bill was passed, there was no funding mechanism. There was no ability to how we were going to pay for it. It passed the Senate, it passed the House. Everybody was on board, no problem. We're going forward with the tunnel project, and we'll figure it out as we move through it. Yes, we'll find the money, we'll push it. Suddenly, SB 562 comes along. Oh, well, we can't push it out of committee without a funding mechanism. Well, we sure as hell did it with the Delta tunnels. So we know we can do it, okay? It can be done. But to go directly to your question as far as answering it, I think that the biggest single problem we have is we have too many fence riders who will sit there and say, yeah, I support 562. I think, 562 is a great bill. I'm all for it. And they're not doing a damn thing to push it forward. It just, yes.
Yeah.
It's nice to say it. It's another thing to actually do something about it. It's what I was talking about earlier about the Bernie Sanders Medicare for All. It's easy for senators to say, I support that. Well, you're going to have to get out and do something about it, because these kind of bills aren't the kind of things that are going to pass on their own. We got to get out and aggressively push and aggressively get out and talk to people about it and explain why, when they say, oh, it's going to be too expensive for California, explain why, no, actually, we're going to save money on this bill. And
significant money,
significant
18%.
Money. There you go. I went to a workshop, an SB 562 workshop up in Lodi. And it is amazing when they just sit there and make the list of things that people say that are just false. They're absolutely false about the bill. And we've got to get people who are, like I said, you can't just sit around and say, I support it. No, you got to actively, we're only going to support people who actively go out and push it.
Exactly.
Period.
Exactly. I was so sick and tired of hearing Viragosa say it's pie in the sky, and Viragosa took $1 million from Herbalife.
Yeah.
It's like, well, once you take $1 million, all of a sudden your ear is taken up by a lot of different voices you start hearing.
Exactly.
Well, and also to your point, you have people that have voted for the bill, but they haven't done anything to champion the bill.
So to speak their constituency and say, get out and do it.
That's because they're making, back-end deals. I'm gonna vote for this one, but you make sure to sink it over there, because I'm actually taking $700,000 from the insurance company. So I'll let them know. So it's not enough to vote for the bill or to give a speech in front of a room full of nurses that you support the bill. We want to see you championing the bill. Write your op-eds. Use your power as, Speaker of the Pro Tem or Speaker of the Assembly to galvanize your people to pass this bill.
I mean, you're right, because Gavin Newsom can get on TV anytime he wants to. I've seen Gavin Newsom on Bill Maher a ton of times, but I haven't heard him go on and on and on fighting for SB 562. That's what I want him to do.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat.